Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Happy Halloween! Have you ever wondered what the Marvelverse does with those they deem to be criminally insane? Well, I'm here to answer that question. Well, sometimes they seem to just get whisked off to a regular prison, others they get redirected to the Ravencroft Institute for the criminally insane. This institute is a maximum security prison and asylum for some of the most mentally unstable supervillains in the Marvelverse. It's like the Marvel version of Arkham Asylum. Today we are going to take a look at some of those who have spent time in the institute as we count down the top 10 most dangerous Ravencroft inmates. Be sure to stick around till the end of this video as I will have some comments coming your way from one of my latest videos as well. Alright, let's go through prison security and then get counting. Number 10. Foolkiller. Gregory Salinger wasn't the first to hold the title. In fact, he was influenced to take up the mantle after serving time in prison and hearing stories of the original Foolkiller from his cellmate. He was later given the costume and from there adopted the mantle, finding inspiration in the story of the criminal. Where the original Foolkiller was a murderer who was obsessed with religion, punishing and killing those he believed behaved sinfully, Gregory had a different outlook when it came to what made one a fool. He believed that those who were mediocre or materialistic deserved to be labeled fool and killed. Well, sometimes this put him in conflict with heroes, other times it actually put him in conflict with villains. At one point, he even almost killed himself, when after taking on Spider-Man he heard someone remark that anyone who tried to take on the hero was a fool. Gotta kill himself. But he didn't, it's all good. Number 9. Massacre. Marcus Lyman turned villain after an attack on him and his wife left her dead and him with shrapnel lodged in his brain. The shrapnel altered his brain, making him unable to connect with others, and in effect, turning him into a sociopath. Marcus became Massacre and started running around shooting and killing people. He even managed to shoot Spider-Man, but Peter was still able to take him down despite being depowered at the time. Massacre was admitted to Ravencroft Institute. He was committed in the comics in 2011, but managed to escape in 2013. However, he then came up against Superior Spider-Man, which meant the ultimate end for Massacre as he was shot and killed himself, until of course he was later resurrected. Final ends don't really have much weight after all in the comics. Number 8. Chameleon. A villain we have yet to see in the MCU but who we were teased getting when a Dimitri showed up in Spider-Man Homecoming. However, this Dmitry Smirdyakov seemed to be working for S.H.I.E.L.D. and has so far appeared fairly legit and not an undercover version of the comic book villain Chameleon, sadly. But time will tell if this changes. Chameleon is one of the oldest Spider-Man villains around, appearing in the very first issue of Amazing Spider-Man out of the 1960s, where he besmirched Spider-Man's hero identity by performing crimes while under his guise. At one point, Spider-Man was made more aggressive after learning that his parents were actually robots in disguise. Yes, that really happened. And as such, when he ends up catching Chameleon, this event ends up bringing up repressed childhood trauma for Dmitry, causing him to question his own identity and driving him insane. He was later taken to Ravencroft but ended up escaping after adopting the identity of staff member Dr. Ashley Kafka. Number 7. Shriek. Shriek has been known by a few aliases in the comics, though it has been clarified that she was born Frances Barrison. Her life of crime started as a drug dealer, and it was during her time in that profession that she suffered a gunshot to the head, which helped cause her to become psychotic. Carnage helped Shriek to escape and she joined him on his rampage, and the two ended up becoming romantically involved. You know you're psychotic if you're interested in dating Cletus Cassidy. She's been in and out of Ravencroft a few times and was actually temporarily cured of her homicidal nature during her time at the Institute, though she later reverted back to it after being used by the Institute as a power source for the Carnage symbiote. Shriek is known for her ability to bring out dark thoughts and feelings in others, and for her sonic beam, which allows her to create blasts using sound waves. Number 6. Morpheus. Morpheus was a regular man named Robert Markham, suffering from insomnia, who sought treatment for his condition from Marlene's brother, Peter Jr. Alruane, who was a doctor. When using experimental treatment to cure the issue, however, something went wrong. The normal man was transformed, finding that his insomnia had worsened. He also now had the ability to access and alter people's dreams, kind of like Freddy Krueger. He used this power to take control of Marlene's brother, but eventually was defeated by Moon Knight. Number 5. Mysterio. Quentin Beck is known as a criminal mastermind and former special effects specialist, who used his expertise to pull off heists and seek revenge on supers who stand in his way. During his time at Ravencroft, he ended up discovering that his obsession with special effects had made him ill, after being exposed to chemicals used within his trade. He was told he had developed an inoperable brain tumor and lung cancer, and that he only had a year to live. Ravencroft released Quentin, believing he no longer posed as a threat to anyone. And what did Quentin do? Immediately set to work on one last villainous plot with Daredevil as his target. I'm not sure what Ravencroft's success rates are at this point, but I imagine they would rival Arkham's in how bad they are at successfully containing training and curing villains. Not very good at it. Number 4. Dr. Octopus. Doc Ock, or Otto Octavius as he was known, was once a very brilliant, insane scientist, though not without his own issues. His mother always fussed over him, while his father was physically abusive to him. When he was young, he fell in love, but his mother refused to give the couple her blessing, believing the fellow scientist he had fallen for was simply not good enough for him. This incident would lead to an argument that would result in his mother becoming estranged from him. The loss of his mother and his love, who had died, I know, very dramatic, left him distracted in his work, leading to the accident that would change his life forever, and cause him to be brain damaged, but able to control his mechanical tentacles. The damage to his brain turned him criminally insane. Number 3. Bushman. Bushman is one of the main villains for Moon Knight, a mercenary who worked alongside Mark Spector, but left him for dead after Spector stood up to defend archaeologist Peter Alroyan's daughter, Marlene. From then on, the two became sworn enemies. Moon Knight once successfully sliced off Raoul Bushman's face and ended up killing him, but he was later resurrected. After his resurrection, he found himself once more in a fight with Moon Knight, who was about to once again cut off Bushman's face, but Bushman pleaded for mercy and was granted it by Spector. After his defeat, he ended up at the Ravencroft Institute. Number 2. Carnage. Cletus Cassidy was not always known as Carnage. There was a time when Cletus lost the symbiote. He was so distraught that he tried to convince others it was still within him, putting himself in harm's way and taking on the damages, though, to prove that the symbiote was still there protecting him, keeping him alive. This tactic resulted in Cletus suffering severe burns all over his body, though the symbiote would later return to him and fix his wounds. He's definitely one of the most criminally insane and dangerous within the Institute. A deranged serial killer, his first kill was his grandmother at a young age. The first time he was a patient there, he was actually just a baby, as Cletus was in fact born within the walls of Ravencroft, foreshadowing his destiny perhaps? Number 1. Green Goblin. While Norman Osborn may not seem the most dangerous upon first look, he is definitely the most dangerous overall in terms of a long-term nemesis. Osborn has been the criminal mastermind behind some of the worst events in Spider-Man's life, causing him great pain. In fact, I think he enjoys inflicting pain upon Peter more than he would enjoy even killing him or just straight up defeating him. Torturing seems to be a hobby of Norman's. He was admitted to Ravencroft after he bonded with the Carnage symbiote and was defeated. Spider-Man managed to separate the symbiote from him, causing Norman to suffer a psychotic break, wherein he actually believed that he was Cletus Cassidy. When he is visited by Spider-Man, he also confesses that he believes that it is not himself but Spider-Man who is actually Norman Osborn. Moral of the story here seems to be that insanity can be contagious when it comes to the Carnage symbiote. Obviously it's got some of Cletus's insanity just built into it. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. I hope you enjoyed this list. I am realizing just how many of Spider-Man's villains are psychotic. Maybe you would have to be psychotic to want to take on Spider-Man? I'm not sure what's really going on there. A lot of mad scientist types too when it comes to those challenging Peter. Are you familiar with Ravencroft? Who would you consider to be the most dangerous inmates there? Would you like to see the Institute explored more in the comics? Let us know in the comments below. And speaking of comments, let's turn to some from one of my most recent videos, Top 10 Overpowered Superheroes Who Can Never Die. Matthew Rutledge says, I'm surprised Deadpool wasn't mentioned. The dude was literally cursed with immortality. Okay, so here's what's up. I thought about including Wade, but wasn't convinced that he was OP enough for the list. Ultimately, his healing factor is his main power, and while it's pretty insane, I'm not sure it bumps him into the overpowered category. I also felt like he would be a better addition to a part 2 of the list, if we make one. Still, good suggestion. I totally did consider him. Daniel Thomas says, Amanda should read 5 comments. 2 is way too short. I wish, but if I did that many, the rest of the content in my list would have to be super short. For that many, we would need a separate comment response video likely. I could, however, respond publicly to a few comments daily on my socials if people are interested. Let me know in the comments. And sadly, that is all the time we have for comments today. Only 2. Sorry, Daniel. As always, be sure to comment below for a chance to get a shout out in the sweet, sweet future times. And remember to like, share, subscribe, and ring our bell as well. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host and hedgehog, Amanda McKnight, reminding you as always to stay prickly and stay nerdy, YouTube.